Hello and welcome to the Engineering Futures podcast. I'm your host, Paul Barker, and I'll be helping you explore the world of manufacturing by introducing you to successful people from across the sector. We'll touch on everything from personal experiences and professional challenges to contemporary issues affecting the sector, careers advice, and practical steps for employers who are looking to attract the top engineering talent. Join us as we get to know the people who have made a difference within the sector. Right, okay, so welcome to the latest episode of the Engineering Futures podcast. Delighted to have a special guest. This episode is Chris Hatherall. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm very well, thanks, Paul. Sun's shining outside, so a lot to be happy about.
It is, and we've just bought a 20-foot outdoor pool, which I'll just about manage to shoehorn into the garden. So yeah, that's up this weekend.
You're showing off.
So Chris, if you just do a quick introduction in terms of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Chris Hatherall. I am the principal of Warrington UTC, so that's Warrington University Technical College.
Okay, excellent. So it'd be good to kind of get us all kicked off with this, Chris, just to find out a little bit about, go right back to the beginning. So when you were leaving school, leaving education, what was going through your mind? What were your hopes and ambitions that you were going to do, and so maybe some of the challenges in terms of kickstarting your career?
So I always knew that I wanted to go to university. I suppose I was quite lucky in the fact that I grew up in a middle class family that everyone went to university. That's what you did. What I wasn't sure about was what I was going to do at university. I think I've ended up running a technical institution. When I was at school, I probably would have been an EBAC student. I didn't do any technical subjects for my GCSEs. I did modern foreign languages, so I did French and German. I did sciences and I did maths, and they were subjects that I enjoyed doing. So when I was a kind of teenager, I thought I was going to do a number of things. I quite fancied being a police officer, an antiques dealer, and then engineering was kind of there because one of my uncles was a civil engineer, and it always interested me in the sorts of projects that he was involved in. He became quite successful. He built a lot of the bridges that were around the M25. Probably the biggest infrastructure project of note that he was involved in was the UK side of the kind of Channel Tunnel project. So I remember that was kind of a big thing from the 80s, and he was in charge of kind of making sure that was completed. So that's something obviously that's part of his CV. So having relations that worked in that sector gave me a bit of interest. I suppose a kind of trigger for me though was when my eldest brother took me to the New Designers exhibition down in London, which is still running now. So, and that was a light bulb moment for me. I went to see one of my eldest brother's friends who was showing at that show, and I saw some examples of product design or industrial design, and I thought, that looks really interesting. These people are designing things that don't exist and coming up with solutions that, for problems that genuinely are going to make a difference. And some of the things were kind of very kind of design-led and aesthetic, and might have ended up in a Comrade shop or in Habitat, which is a big chain at the time. And then other things were a little bit more industrial, not kind of digital. This was kind of pre the kind of computer-led revolution that we kind of live in now, but kind of practical solutions to things. So that led me to go on and decide that I wanted to do engineering. So I went and did engineering at a local FE college, and then from that I moved on and did an industrial design course at university. Now, whilst I was at university, I really enjoyed my time there. Classic university experience in Manchester. Had a great time, and then I started considering what I was going to do next. And then this is where kind of teaching came in. I come from a family of teachers. My mum was a teacher. My auntie was a teacher. Another one of my aunties was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. My great-great-grandmother was a governess in Madeira. So my dad had done a bit of university lecturing and taught on an MBA course post his commercial career. So obviously there's something in our kind of bloodline about educating others. So I wasn't the best industrial designer. I knew that. Kind of the best in my class have gone on to great things and worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. One of my good friends is a VP for industrial design for Amazon and is responsible for hundreds of millions of products being in households all over the world. I wasn't that person. So actually, education was a good fit. So I ended up training to be a design and technology teacher. And I've been in education ever since. I've done a bit of freelance work over the years. And I've got involved in education and training. I was over 10 years as a non-exec for a training provider in Manchester, and a massive advocate for all things technical and the opportunities that they provide young people.
Okay, very good. And then, so now you're kind of currently working as a principal. So, I mean, that is a big job with huge responsibilities, really. What made you, had you always had the ambition to go as high as you could? What was the driver? Is it something that you fell into along the way and decided you wanted to do it? Or did you always feel that you wanted to do that? And, what kind of pressures come with that role and the responsibility?
So this is my third principalship. I suppose when I first went into teaching, I probably had the appetite for progression. I think about my circle of friends, some of whom I've been friends with since the age of 4, and we've all been very successful in our own ways in life. And a number of my friends have been really successful commercially and gone on to, run their own organisations and so on. And I suppose as a collective, we're all quite driven individuals. So when I got into teaching, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy working with young people, and I found actually I had an appetite for leading others. So it's one of those jobs that perversely can be the most rewarding in the world, and then similarly the most demoralizing and stressful for various reasons. Especially post-COVID, it's become more challenging. I think my kind of personality trait lends itself to being able to cope with spinning multiple plates at the same time and managing that workload. And I am blessed to have a fantastic wife who is extremely understanding. She doesn't work in education herself, but has an appreciation of the demands of the job. And I think through my career, I've been really lucky in the fact that I've worked with some outstanding individuals, and that's enabled me to make progress. And I've worked in a number of different types of institutions. I've worked in high performing, outstanding schools. I've worked in challenging in city schools that have been high performing in their own way. I've worked in secondary modern schools. I've worked in religious kind of selective environments. And I've worked in and out of UTCs over the last 10 years. So I've kind of experienced that kind of wave of opportunities that come with changes in education policy from various governments. And benefited hugely from it. I benefited certainly kind of the UTC program, and more recently with the T-level program, the opportunity to establish new things and do things differently that aren't the way that everyone else does in education. And then prior to that, under the Labour government, I worked in Trafford and was heavily involved in 14 to 19 diplomas, and had a similar experience with that. I thought they were a fantastic suite of qualifications and enables us to invest heavily in kind of technical opportunities and training for young people. So yeah, I'm a very driven individual. I used to be like the whippersnapper on the block. I'm now getting to the point where I'm one of the oldest people in the building, which is I've get to reach that kind of stage in my life. But I still really, really enjoy the opportunities that the day job provides, and transforming lives and giving young people chances that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And it's still exciting. We've just started a project with a primary STEM project. One of our challenges is that young people don't get to find out about us. They join us in year 10 at 14. And not enough young people realise that there's tremendous opportunities in STEM education. So just about to embark on a big robotics challenge with an American organisation and a UK organisation, XRP Robotics and Kids Invent Stuff. And it's really exciting. It's been funded, not by ourselves, but we're hoping that we're going to transform STEM opportunities for young people in Warrington. And things like that wouldn't happen if I wasn't at the UTC. So I have to be really grateful for the opportunities it provides.
So just to press you a bit more about UTCs, then, because there might be people listening to this who are unfamiliar with UTCs. So could you just explain a little bit about what a UTC is, and how it differs from traditional secondary or further education, and how young people or parents can start thinking about or engaging with the UTC and why they should do that?
Yeah, so we're one of 44 UTCs nationally. The actual UTC program is over 10 years old now. So, one of the first, or the first UTC was actually built under a Labour government. So that's the JCB Academy down in Staffordshire, which is co-located with JCP's kind of global headquarters. The UTC in Warrington came about to meet a skills need. So there was a skills review in 2012 that identified that there weren't enough young people from Cheshire and Warrington accessing the kind of world-class opportunities that are available in this area. For those of you that don't know, a lot of the kind of design work for the UK nuclear industry is done in Warrington. So that's decommissioning, which is the Sellafield, and then you've got all the kind of Magnox reactors that are going to be coming offline over the next 10 years. You've got new build work as well, so new reactors, not just in the UK, but globally. And then defence work as well. And all of those different activities need skilled people, and not just graduates. So, the industry does really well at recruiting people from a variety of different kind of higher education backgrounds, but there is a whole raft of technical occupations and really skilled technician roles that are needed that the organisations that we work with are unable to recruit into, because simply there aren't enough young people coming out of the education system with those skills. So UTC Warrington was set up following that skills review in 2012 and opened in 2016. And at that time, and there's lots of different stats you can look at, but there was about 180,000 technical vacancies in the UK. So we're in 2024 now. I've been at some meetings recently in Westminster where that stats jumped up to 250,000. So this is against the backdrop of people perceiving engineering as a dying trade within the UK, and we don't manufacture anything and so on. But the reality is there is more than enough work for those people that decide to train and get the technical skills and competencies. So UTCs by design are small. So, we're a 5-story building in the centre of Warrington. We're not anywhere near the same size as a normal high school, or certainly not an FE college. We have a very, very narrow technical curriculum, which is designed in partnership with our employer partners. So I don't make the curriculum up on my own. I consult with our employer partners. I look at workforce demand data, identify where there's going to be skill shortages. So currently we have 4 specialisms. Digital, which I think everyone knows, if you've got somebody that's got a talent in digital, you don't actually have to complete much higher kind of formal education. If you've got the right skill set, you can go and work. And we've got plenty of examples of students who've been able to do that and go on to fantastic commercial careers without the need for further training and apprenticeships or degrees and things like that. Laboratory science is the other area that we are covering with our T-level provision. So again, technicians within the kind of lab science environment. You've got that within nuclear, within the hospital environments, private pathology labs, all sorts of different opportunities. There's several big multinational drugs companies that operate in the northwest of England, have the same challenges around recruiting the right people at the right level. Engineering and manufacturing, for which we offer a number of different disciplines: mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, control, and so on. There's a plethora of opportunities in that area. And then design, surveying and planning with civil engineering. So there are kind of specialist areas. But UTC provides the opportunity for a young person to step out of their high school at 14, so they would complete their Key Stage 3 programme of study and then come and do their GCSEs alongside technical qualifications with us. So we're what I would describe as School Plus. So we do the qualifications you would find in a normal high school. We're not bound by the same kind of constraints that high schools do in terms of having to deliver an EBAC curriculum or qualifications that count towards Progress 8. So I have the luxury of being able to offer qualifications that meet workforce demand. So all of our students will do English, Maths and Science, and then they'll do a selection of technical qualifications alongside that according to their specialist interest. And then if they do 2 years with us, they can then go on to another 6-form college or another FE college, or they can then come into our sixth form and study one of our T-level programs in our specialist areas. Of the 44 UTCs around the country, about 25% of them do take learners at year 9, and then a smaller percentage are all through, so they recruit at year 7, and it's a UTC high school. Okay, now by design, UTCs are full of lots of specialist equipment. When we opened, we had over £1 million worth of specialist equipment that was brought into the building to allow us to deliver our technical curriculum, and we're halfway through a £1.7 million refurbishment to allow us to deliver our kind of technical T-level programs really well. So we're really privileged in the fact that we've ongoing investment that you wouldn't ordinarily get in a regular high school environment. So I said a lot there, Paul. You'll have to let me know if I've missed anything out or I didn't answer.
No. I think for me, kind of being over. So we were at the event on Thursday that you had at the UTC, kind of showcasing the success. And for me, what really stuck out was the destinations in terms of the stark differences between how your students, UTC students, go on to progress to apprenticeships compared to other students. Do you just want to talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. Yeah, so that is certainly a strength of many UTCs, and for us here in Warrington, we're very lucky. Over the last 4 years, we've been in the top 20 nationally for students progressing into higher and degree apprenticeships. Fantastic things happen here. We get young people that leave us at 16 because they've been offered an apprenticeship where they're earning more money or will be earning more money than their parents. So currently, we are in the top 20 for institutions nationally. So we're ranked 11th out of over 2,000 or 3,000 post-16 institutions nationally. And our students progress into some world-class opportunities, not just with our employer partners here in Warrington, but further afield. Students go on to work for multinationals that have got offices all over the world with brand names that, if you're in the sector, you have a real kind of appreciation of the status of those organisations, and we'll get students who are unsuccessful with our nuclear partners. They might not get a degree apprenticeship with Sellafield or Jacobs, but then go and work with British Aerospace up in Cumbria, or they get a job with Rolls-Royce, or they'll get a job with Red Bull Racing, the F1 team. So, every year it happens. There are young people whose lives are transformed because they've been to the UTC. And it's not just about qualifications. I think one of the things that all UTCs are really good at is developing the behaviours that young people need in order to be successful in the workplace. So we help them identify where their strengths are. We get quite a lot of young people who are what I would describe as neurodiverse. So they are outstanding engineers and scientists, but they need to develop their interpersonal skills, and we can really bring that out with a young person over a 2 or a 4 year period. So helping to develop their communication skills, their ability to work in a team. We have fantastic problem solvers, and some become brilliant leaders as well. So it's a really interesting kind of mix that we have at the UTC. Some young people come to us with specific needs and challenges. Some come with an absolute focus because they are very much a STEM orientated individual. And then some young people come to us because they've been let down by the system. And they're probably the ones that I most enjoy winning with, where we get a young person who maybe was at risk of permanent exclusion in their previous school, and then they leave us having done 4 years, and they're onto a life-changing opportunity and into a career where they're going to have work for the rest of their lives. So yeah, it's really, really tremendous. But yeah, the apprenticeship piece is our real strength. We do have students who go to university, but morally, if we can get them a degree apprenticeship, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you go and have a degree without all of the debt and the expense, and get the commercial experience at the same time? It's a fantastic opportunity to fast track young people into really life-changing opportunities.
So you talked there, Chris, about those that have been failed by the education system having a chance to then come to you and kind of start afresh. Have you got any examples of that in terms of the kind of young people that you get coming to, some of the difficulties they have, and how you managed as an organisation to turn that around, and actually they've exited on a positive destination.
Yeah, there's a number. I have to be a bit careful here because I don't want to name names. So I won't name students or the organisations they've gone on to, just to protect the identity of individuals. But I think the UTC programme, being over 10 years old now, has got to know itself really well. So when the programme was first set up, there was an ambition just to attract all these young people that are interested in STEM careers. And in reality, what happened was at Key Stage 4, lots of institutions took the opportunity to instruct young people to go and have a fresh start at this new school that's opening up down the road. And you know, with respect to kind of lots of colleagues in the local area, that doesn't happen in the way that perhaps it used to a number of years ago. But it's still a challenge in the fact that every year we'll get young people that come to us because they've received some poor advice and guidance about who we are, what we do. You know, people forget we're a school. We are a school, we're a school, and that's first and foremost. So all the stuff that you normally find in a high school, students have to do here, we're school plus. So actually, the working with the employers is more challenging. So we do get young people who come to us in September who don't really know about us. What they've been told is one thing, and then they come here and find out it's very different. But they do come with some absolutely tragic stories. So the event that we had last week with our stakeholders pool, I was narrating about a young person that come to us, and we're their 7th institution. So they've been to 7 different schools in different authorities, and they've ended up here at the UTC. And one of the positives, so that young person has been with us since September. The amount of exclusions that person's had has gone down significantly. So we haven't needed to exclude that individual in the way that they perhaps have been processed through the system in their previous high schools. Their attendance is improved significantly. So that's something I should say is any young person that comes to us who's got a history of poor attendance, 75% of those young people have improved attendance when they come to the UTC. So there's something that we do here, we do differently, that young people can engage with. And the young person I was talking about, the 7 schools, I'm absolutely delighted. So we send out all of our Year 10 students in July, and that young person has secured a work placement with one of our multinational companies that we work with in one of their offices. So I'm absolutely delighted for that individual, because that is going to be a life-changing opportunity for that person. I'm sure of it, and they will perhaps be considering moving on to a higher apprenticeship with them at the end of year 11 if it's a successful week that they have, or potentially staying with us for a few more years and then having the ambition to get a degree apprenticeship. So that happens every year. We get young people that come to us with significant challenges, trauma, they're not understood. I think we've had 7 EHCPs go through since September. So these are young people that didn't have an educational care health plan in place. We've identified that they've got additional needs that are not being met, and then fought for them to help them access additional funding, which enables us to do more with them. So we're not the only people that do that. All UTCs have become experts at that. So it's a consequence of the system. At the moment, there's too good an opportunity for sometimes well-meaning individuals in high schools who are perhaps having to work really hard with certain individuals and their families, see an opportunity, a way out, and they get directed to the UTC without really understanding what it is that we do, because we are a technical institution with a very narrow curriculum. So sending somebody to come here who wants to be a beautician, who wants to be a hairdresser, who wants to be a chef, is absolutely a misguided thought. And these are the sorts of processes that happen and happen every year. But as I say, we as UTCs know ourselves better, and I think we get really, really good at supporting those young people and helping them transform their lives. And then in turn, they come back every year. We're maturing now as an organisation, so I've got the privilege of young people coming back to us. We've got a young lady who's working with us now who was one of the first UTC graduates who's gone to university to get a degree in physics, and now is working back with us as a TA. And I very much hope is going to train to be a physics or an engineering teacher. So, you know, that circular economy and us feeding our own talent, brilliant opportunity. I'm delighted.
So when you talk about talent there, Chris, so a lot of, my business is all centered around helping manufacturing companies or access talent into their organisation. And I think a lot of them miss a big piece in terms of engaging with educational establishments. Maybe because there's a misconception around the value of a young person, or what that the effort that they would have to put in to engage in with that young person. But now we've got T levels, which I think are a great qualification. So I've recently kind of signed up to become an ambassador for T levels, because I really do believe that it's, in terms of being able to grow your own, it is such an amazing opportunity for employers. So, I mean, could you just talk a little bit about T levels and that work placement, and why employers should consider offering that placement to a young person?
Yeah, of course. So just to pick you up, so the work placement bit is an industry placement. So we've got to differentiate between what's gone before and the opportunity that industry placements provide. So just very quickly, T levels are the new gold standard in technical education. They are equivalent to 3 A levels. So if you think about A levels of long-standing academic qualification, a really good benchmark for universities or employers to understand the ability, the academic ability of individuals that they're perhaps seeking to employ. T levels are replacing the plethora of technical qualifications that are out there on the kind of UK education market. And over time, over the next few years, a number of qualifications are being defunded, and it will only be a T level qualification that students can do in set disciplines. One of the USPs for the T level, they're larger qualifications than A levels. So three A levels are the time required to deliver those is less than the time requirement for the engineering T level, for example. The T levels come with 45 days of industry placement. So that industry placement can be delivered by one provider, or it can be delivered by two. And it shouldn't be delivered by any more than that, because then what that will do is then water down the experience that the young person gets. There are tremendous opportunity for all employers to try before you buy. Now, in terms of what that looks like across the landscape, you've got young people who are doing T levels and getting their industry placement in the Cabinet Office. So security clearance is not an issue. All of these young people are 16 and above. So health and safety is not an issue, providing that they've had the adequate training and are given the same training and advice and guidance that any early career entrant would be for any employers. So, and then for the employer's perspective, they've got an opportunity really to select potentially who they're going to have on industry placement, have them on placement for 9 weeks or 45 days. And then at the end of the T-level qualification, have a young person who is ready-made to then enter that business. So we've got people like BAE Systems, who employ near on 100,000 people in the UK, who are looking at T-levels as a mechanism for direct entry into their early careers framework. So they're like the gold standard for me. They want to take a young person for 45 days. And then if that young person does their 45 days with them as a business, they get guaranteed entry into their early careers framework, which may be a higher or degree apprenticeship in the technical discipline that they're doing. And I know there are other larger organisations that are looking at that model going forward. The NHS, obviously Europe's largest employer, have come to terms with the challenges of T-level and are now successfully taking T-level learners in a number of different disciplines around the country in different NHS trusts. So it's starting to get traction. The young people don't have to be actively working on something with a particular individual. They can be set off on a task in order to develop their behaviours and their experiences. So some of it might be related to the occupational specialism that they're studying. So if they were an engineer and they're doing mechanical engineering, it might be a project based in that area. Or it might be about their interpersonal skills. So it might be actually, we've identified we've got a young person who needs to develop their communication skills or needs to get experience of working in a team. So there are loads of different opportunities for a young person whilst on industry placement. And I think, my personal favourite is when we get employers who'll take 2 of our learners, because straight away that reduces the kind of pressure, it decompresses it a little bit for the kind of people internally within those organisations to be available 24/7 for their industry placement individual. and you can set young people off on tasks together, projects together. It might be a new bit of tech, could be a piece of equipment that's been delivered and needs programming and setting up. It's a great opportunity for a competent young person, such as a T-level student, to come in and add a bit of value and a bit of time to the organisation. So it's still very, even though T-levels have been around for a few years, the industry placement narrative is one that is still approached with a little bit too much caution, or I think organisations are not seeing it as a solution at the moment. They're seeing it as a potential headache, and actually it should be part of the solution, absolutely. And for the greater good, some organisations are very precious about taking a young person and then losing them. But I think for me as an educator, that's what I think we need to do. Certainly the bigger organisations need to bring talent on and then feed them into their supply chains. So it just makes everyone's life easier. So I'm a big advocate for T-levels. I think the assessment mechanism is more aligned with A-levels, with terminal and exams and so on. So it's far more rigorous than some of the vocational qualifications that have been floating around for a number of years. So, definitely employers are going to get a higher caliber individuals. And I've been very proud of our T-level cohort this year. They really are stepping up to the plate, and I'll be delighted, for them when they get onto the job market this time next year. They're going to make a lot of employers very happy.
Yeah, and I think you raise a very valid point there about it's about a little bit of thought in terms of what this industrial placement is. So it isn't somebody stood shadowing, getting in the way kind of thing. It's about being creative, and it's about thinking about what that could be. Because straight away you talk about there, take two of them on, give them a project. They're situated in that workplace. They might have kind of people that are periodically coming in and checking in on them and supporting them. But that could be a project on a piece of new kit that's not really been implemented properly. It could be creating like a user manual, or it could be looking at getting involved and understanding how that could be widely adopted. Anything that involves them being creative and having an input into a project, it could be then presenting that back in terms of what, weekly updates and things like that. So actually the time that an employer is having to spend with these young people isn't that great, but what they are doing is on a kind of student-led, work-based project, which works really well because it enables, like you say, them to develop their essential behaviours, but also show the kind of what they're all about and what their ability is, rather than, like you say, the traditional work experience where you just kind of sat there watching somebody.
Yeah, I think the way I see it, I think some of take BAE out of the equation, I think some of the larger employers, if they're not careful, are going to score an own goal with this, because I think, certainly from my experience, SMEs have the ability and the capacity to respond at a much faster rate to the needs and the demands of accommodating a T-level placement student, and they're going to be the net beneficiaries. Is those young people are going to have an affinity with those organisations and want to go back to them and apply to them. And then at the same time, some of these larger organisations, some of which are publicly funded, are just a little bit behind the curve in terms of responding to the opportunity. And then that's going to come back to pinch them, maybe, in the fact that they're going to have fewer applicants, because a number of these students will have gone elsewhere and will be looking elsewhere because of the opportunities that have been provided to them on their placements.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and I think it is, hopefully, but they do. I was speaking to someone about this the other day, and it's about the partnerships between employers and education, and it really is, and like the T levels as well. It's almost a partnership. It's employers have to be involved for these to work, because especially as the kind of like the your BTECs and that fade away, and we have potentially more people coming into the pipeline. They need to have that meaningful work experience. So if there's an employer listening to this that's kind of interested in finding out more, Chris, what would they do to get involved in being able to facilitate this placement?
I'd say reach out to your local UTC. Certainly, there's a lot of providers out there, but UTCs, I think, have a level of expertise of working with employers in a way that isn't commercially going to cost you anything. We're not going to be seeking to generate some revenue from our kind of experiences with you. Genuinely, we want to do what's right for the young people and then support employers in finding the right young people so we can close that skills gap. So I'd encourage you to do that. I have to say, I think over the last 12 or 18 months, I think the DFE and the AOC and the other organisations, ETF Foundation, have really got their kind of game in order in terms of generating resources that are readily accessible for employers to read and learn about the T-level programme. You mentioned yourself, Paul, about being a T-level ambassador. There are some outstanding individuals out there who are advocating for it. So the support's there. If there's a training need, all T-level providers are in a position whereby they can support certainly SMEs with a small amount of funding to help get people up to speed so they're better qualified or have the capacity to support young people whilst they're on their industry placements. And some of the barriers that you think might be in place actually don't need to be. So if you work in an environment which is commercially sensitive or has some security protocols or some health and safety protocols, there is some really, really good wisdom out there and support to help you overcome those. Because I know, people straight away think about young people and the risks associated with it, but they should be treated like you would any other employee. The risk assessments don't need to be modified because you've got somebody who is 16 or 17 years old or 18 in some circumstances. The other thing I would say is we as an institution don't look to send young people out from day one. A number of our T-level students didn't do their Key Stage 4 with us, so we're looking to send our students out in June. So they would have done almost a whole academic year with us. So they have the technical skills that we want them to have. They're literate in terms of their CAD skills and workshop practices and things like that. So I know that they're going to have the behaviours that will allow them to be successful with employers. So that reduces that burden. Literally, they're kind of oven ready and ready to get started on a project or an activity. And a number of them have outstanding communication skills from day one. There's a lot that they're going to come with, and you'd be pleasantly surprised. But it's a tremendous opportunity to close that skills gap. If it not for your own organisation, then think about your supply chain and then the partner organisations you work with. We really can make a difference.
Okay, excellent. And then just wanted to talk as well, Chris, about the you've just been to San Francisco, haven't you, with some students?
I have, yeah. So this is the kind of school bit, I suppose, we do. But we get our young people out of Warrington. Some of our young people have never been out of Warrington, so if we can, we'll get them to Wales on outward bound experiences, get them caving, abseiling, climbing, walking. We take them to Iceland to look at our geographers go there, look at two continents meeting, all the kind of really interesting kind of volcanic activities that's going on there. And then more recently, I've just had a trip to San Francisco. So I had the pleasure of taking 20 plus of our students, plus some of the engineering team here over to San Francisco to experience the kind of home of computing, I suppose, in terms of innovation. So we had the opportunity to visit Apple, Google, Intel. We went to find out where it all started, the HP garage in Sunnyvale. So students had the full kind of city experience of San Francisco as is now, and then also into Silicon Valley. So yeah, it was a tremendous opportunity for the young people, and for some of them, the first time on an aeroplane, first time away from parents, so all those kind of things that I really valued as a young person myself when I was at school. We've been able to do here, and it's tremendous. Coming out of COVID, these are things that we should be doing anyway, and tremendous opportunity. And you never know. Hopefully, in a few years' time, we'll have some young people that are successful in being able to go back in the other direction as an employee of some of those organisations. It's it really is a different world in terms of where we were as the epicenter of things that are changing our lives at the moment. So all the kind of large language models that are being developed in industrial estates that are in themselves in that part of San Francisco, have regenerated, much as you would find in parts of Warrington or Manchester, where these businesses have been incubators and suddenly gone from a 2 or 3 head count to several hundred, and they're doing things that are going to affect us all. So, and the students got to experience kind of how it starts and how really it's not that much different from going into the centre of Manchester. It's just how it's landed and where the innovation happens. So yeah, really exciting. And probably one of my highlights was the Googleplex, and getting to cycle around that on a Google bike and see all the kind of iconic stuff that you've probably seen on numerous films, but getting the students to experience that actually it's really accessible for them if they want it. It's just in that part of the world. You know, Google obviously have a big presence in the UK, so you never know. Watch this space. We might end up with some young people going into that direction. But yeah, fantastic experience and opportunity for the young people. And I'm looking forward to the next one. The next trip is to Germany in the autumn, where they're going to spend a bit of time at the Porsche factory in southern Germany, and then Mercedes-Benz, and then Siemens, who we work with in the UK, have been generous enough to organise a factory visit to accommodate some of our students. So a bit more local, good opportunity to practice the students' European language skills post-Brexit. But yeah, we're always on the lookout for opportunities, not just internationally, I might add. If somebody's in the UK and they've got a plant or factory or something you think might be of interest to any of our students, then yeah, please reach out to us, because we're always on the lookout for stuff in context. It's really, really useful.
Right. Well, yeah, Chris, that's great. It's been a really, really good conversation. Is that, I just want to kind of congratulate you on the work that you're doing. I think that it is inspiring to see what you're doing, to see the difference that you're making for not only for young people but also for employers in the area. And I think that a lot of people could learn some good lessons about the importance of getting students work ready and those positive destinations. So yeah, keep up the good work, Chris. And yeah, thank you very much for chatting with us today.
Brilliant, Paul. Thanks for your time. As ever, always a pleasure. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I'm a massive advocate for it. And I think together, collectively, we can definitely make an impact. So yeah, really thankful. Thank you.